Well, good evening, everybody. So, last class we were discussing about public administration and what concepts we have read till now. We have seen, first of all, the definition of public administration. And for the definition of public administration, we have divided the public administration term into two parts. One was administration, other is public. And we have seen that for administration, we require the three things. One is the collective activity, second is the rational organization, and third is the management of man and material. These three things are required for the definition of administration. And then we have seen the concept of public. And the concept of public can be seen again in two ways. On one side, the public stands for the government sector. That means administration made by the government sector is called the public administration. On the other side, we can see that public administration means the administration for public. So in this way, we can differentiate the public administration two ways. But generally, it is assumed that public administration means the administration made by the government sector. And then we have compared the private administration as well as public administration. That we have seen. We have also seen the features of public administration. And after that, we have discussed, we started our discussion with the features or natures of public administration. Nature of public administration, it's also can be called features of public administration. It can also be called characteristics of public administration. So we have started with the objective, that the objective of public administration is welfare maximization, while the objective of private administration is profit maximization, that we have seen. So how many points we have discussed? Yes, कितने point discuss किए हम लोगों ने?
So finances, we are on finances.
Okay, finances, did we discuss?
No, sir, we haven't discussed it.
Okay. So we discussed these 6 points, which are objective, scope. We have seen the scope of public administration is very large, as you know, that it's a government sector, and the scope of government sector is very large. Then we have seen the political context. The activities of public administrators are under the ambit of political context. And then we have seen the externalities. We have seen the skill required. That is much more. The person should be multidimensional in the public administration. Then we have seen the monopoly. That usually in the public administration, there is a monopoly of administrators because there is no alternative. For example, I gave you example of law and order. We do not have any alternative for the police administration. If police is not efficient, if police is not doing good, then we do not have any other alternative that this person can take care of the law and order. So that is why generally in public administration there is monopoly. So next point is about finances. Finances. इसमें लिखो आप लोग, in government, budgets are formulated by fixing the expenditure. Budgets are formulated by fixing the expenditure. And then it tries to raise
So please repeat.
Okay. In government, budgets are formulated by fixing the expenditure. and then it tries to raise revenues. Then it tries to raise revenues. Next line se likho. When the government is borrowing, okay, should I repeat it? Should I repeat it again? So what I said, that in government, budgets are formulated by fixing the expenditure, and then it raises, and then it tries to raise, revenues. Then it tries to raise revenues. मतलब सिंपल है इसका. इनफैक्ट मैं समझाना आपको बाद में चाह रहा था, लेकिन आप समझ लो भी. हम यहाँ पर क्या कहना चाह रहे हैं कि दैट, देखिए यदि कोई प्राइवेट प्लेयर है, यदि प्राइवेट कंपनी है, मान लीजिए उसको अपना बजट बनाना है कि इस साल में मेरे को कितना खर्च करना है, इस तरह से पहले से एक बजट तैयार करना. सो हाउ दे वुड डू, सबसे पहले वो देखेंगे कि हमें कितना रेवेन्यू जनरेशन होगा. They will make an estimation of the revenue, and then they will decide expenditure, and they will keep these things in that way so that expenditure would be less than revenue. Why? So that there could be a profit also. And that is the scheme for the private players. But how government makes their budget? Government firstly decides expenditure. जैसे गवर्नमेंट बोले कि ये सैलरी तो हमें पे करनी ही है गवर्नमेंट एम्प्लॉयज के लिए, इसके अलावा गवर्नमेंट सोचेगी हमें ये रोड्स बनानी है, कंस्ट्रक्शन करना है, इतना एजुकेशन को देना है, इतना हेल्थ सेक्टर को देना है. So firstly they decide expenditure, and then they decide about revenue. And it is a usual phenomena that expenditure is always greater than revenue. जितना revenue आता है उससे ज्यादा गवर्नमेंट एक्सपेंडिचर करती है. So how it will deal with the difference between the expenditure and revenue? It takes borrowings. It takes borrowings every year. So that is how government tries to manage. But this is not the condition with the private sector. So इसमें लिखो आप लोग, when the government is borrowing, they can make it using its sovereign debt. Sovereign debt को आप लोग इन्वर्टेड कॉमर्स में कर लो. Using its sovereign debt power. It do not need to put it does not need to put any collateral securities. It does not need to put any collateral security. In private sector, they first look for revenue. In private sector, they first look for revenue. Please write little bit fast. In private sector, they first look for revenue. On the basis of this, they fix their expenditure. On the basis of this, they fix their expenditure. In private sector, they first look for revenue, and on the basis of this, they fix their expenditure. So that is the difference between the private and public sector. In public sector, what government has advantage that it can take loans without putting any collateral security. Collateral security का मतलब यहाँ पर ये है कि मान लीजिए आज हम लोग को लोन लेने जाना है, so banks आपको ऐसे ही लोन नहीं देंगे, they will demand for any collateral security, they can ask for your property paper, they can ask for gold, so only in that conditions they will make some kind of conditions, and in that they will take some collateral security, then only they will provide us loan. So that is a constraint with the private sector, but with the government sector there is no need to put the collateral security. It's called the sovereign debt. That means एक इंडियन गवर्नमेंट लोन ले रही है तो उसके लिए कोई कोलेटरल सिक्योरिटी की जरूरत नहीं है, because it is stated that it is very rare that a country can be defaulted. इसके चांस बहुत कम है, and that is why government has power to take loans without any collateral security, and that is called sovereign debt. Government can generate that kind of sovereign debt. Next point लिखते हैं हम लोग. सो ये जो हम टॉपिक कर रहे हैं इसमें हम लोग प्राइवेट वर्सेस पब्लिक सेक्टर में भी डिफरेंशिएट कर पा रहे हैं, प्राइवेट एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन वर्सेस पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट वी आर आल्सो डिस्कसिंग फीचर्स ऑफ पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन और नेचर ऑफ पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन और कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स ऑफ पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन. नेक्स्ट पॉइंट लिखो, फाइनेंशियल कंट्रोल. फाइनेंशियल कंट्रोल इसमें देखो, फॉर पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन इट इज एक्सटर्नल. For public administration, it is external. Budgets prepared by the executives. Budgets prepared by the executives need to be ratified. Need to be ratified by the legislature. Need to be ratified by the legislature. Need to be ratified by the legislature. नेक्स्ट लाइन से एक कोटेशन लिखो, नो टैक्सेशन without representation. No taxation without representation. No taxation without representation. So basically, in financial control, what we are saying that the financial control in case of public sector, it is external. In case of public administration, the financial control is external. So basically, who has the power to expend? Power to expend the money is given in the hands of executives. But they cannot expend in arbitrary manner. To withdraw money from the government treasury, what they needed? They need to pass a particular bill that is called appropriation bill. Likewise, if they want to impose a tax on people, then also they need to pass. I think there was disconnection. So what we are saying here that here the control in the financial matters is external. That means for each and every financial task of executives, they will be regulated by the legislature. even if they are making expenditure, they need to put their account in the front of the legislature. They're totally controlled by the legislature. Legislature can ask them question also that how did you spend this money? But in case of private sector, there is no such thing. In private sector, the financial control is internal. इनफैक्ट जो हमने ये जो कोटेशन यूज की है, नो टैक्सेशन विदाउट रिप्रेजेंटेशन, आप लोगों को याद है ये कोटेशन कब यूज की थी हम लोगों ने? इससे पहले इस पे बात कर चुके हम लोग. यस,
अमेरिकन वॉर ऑफ इंडिपेंडेंस.
राइट, अमेरिकन वॉर ऑफ इंडिपेंडेंस. सो हम लोग यहाँ पर क्या कह रहे हैं कि मान लीजिए लेजिस्लेचर का कंट्रोल नहीं हो एग्जीक्यूटिव के ऊपर, क्या हम लोग टैक्स पे करेंगे? ऑब्वियसली नॉट. वी वोंट डू दैट. व्हाई? बिकॉज these legislators who are sitting in the legislature, they are basically our representatives. We feel that we are sitting in parliament in the form of our representatives, and these representatives control the government behalf of us. So in that way, this financial control in the public sector is always external. So next line se likho. And apart from apart from that, the control by the legislature, there is one more institution which controls, that is CAG. So इसमें लिखो, auditing is done by CAG, which is again an independent body, and not the part of executive, So apart from the control by legislature, there is one more thing for the public sector in the financial control, that there is one independent institution, that is a constitutional body, that is CAG, and full form of CAG is Comptroller and Auditor General of India. So what is the role of CAG? CAG only audits the account of government. In that way, we can find that our taxes are secure because it will be controlled. Our money is secured in the form of taxation. Why? Because it is controlled by the legislature, as well as there will be auditing by the CAG. इसी में लिखो आप लोग, in private sector, this control is internal. In private sector, this control is internal. In private sector, this control is internal. So next point लिखते हैं हम लोग, ninth point, that is information. That is the ninth feature of public administration. इसमें लिखो आप लोग, in public administration, it is the responsibility of the government. In public administration, it is the responsibility of government to share all information, with people. Whereas in private sector, whereas in private sector, information is always private. Whereas in private sector, information is always private and confidential. Information is always private and confidential. Information is always private and confidential. Always private and confidential. So what we are saying that अभी देखिए आप लोग प्राइवेट सेक्टर से हम लोग इंफॉर्मेशन को डिमांड करना चाहें कि आपको कितना प्रॉफिट हुआ या किस तरह से आपने पैसा खर्च किए, so can we do that? Not, because the objective of private organizations are different. But for the public sector, yes, we have power in our hand, like a Right to Information Act gives us power to ask questions, to bring transparency. We can put n number of questions in the front of public sector, that how you are spending our money and how things are running. You can ask from local administration also. But that is not the case of private sector. That is why public sector is bound to share information with people, but not the private sector. Next point लिखते हैं हम लोग, 10th point, that is public responsibility. Public responsibility. Public responsibility. इसके बारे में लिखो आप लोग. Administrators are responsible to. Administrators are responsible to citizens. Responsible to citizens for their actions. For their actions. Administrators are responsible to citizens for their actions. In private administration, responsibility is limited to their own organizations. Their own organizations. In private administration, responsibility is limited to their own THEIR, their own organizations. So what we are saying that in public administration, the responsibility of public administrators is not for any particular individual. This responsibility is the scope of responsibility is much larger in case of public administrators. If anything, for example, if you are district collector, if anything happens in your district, you will be held responsible. For example, in your district, in a particular town, if something wrong was made by any police personnel, still, as a district collector, you will be held accountable, although you didn't make any mistake. Why? Because the scope of responsibility is much larger in the public sector. But in case of private sector, the responsibility is very narrow. A private administrator or private individual is responsible to any particular person or for particular any cause or function. The scope of responsibility is much larger in case of public organizations. And next point, next feature of public administration is anonymity. Anonymity. Anybody knows what is the meaning of anonymity? Yes, what is the meaning of anonymity?
Doing a work by not unveiling your name or identity.
Right. Basically, anonymity is related to as Shalu said, that the non-declaration of identity. Okay, see, इस concept को अच्छे से समझ लेना आप लोग public administration केस में. For public servants, मान लीजिए आज कुछ भी एक अच्छा होता है हमारी गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, government has achieved the target for electrification in our country. That doesn't mean that Narendra Modi himself installed the electric poles within the a particular time period. So many public administrators, so many workforce was involved in that work. But who will get credit? Credit will taken by the political executives. And these public administrators, who nobody knows that who installed these electrical poles, or who were the branch who initiated this project, in fact, who gave inputs to make these policies, and who implemented these policies. Nobody knows. What we know, we know only one name, that is Narendra Modi or any other political executive. That means these public servants are anonymous. And if you'll see other face, if anything bad happens, then also we demand the resignation of the minister. For example, if there is a railway accident, even for the negligence of a railway individual, railway person, we demand the resignation of political executives. In both way. So political executives also take credit. Anything good done by the public servants, as well as they need to take the responsibility if anything bad happens by the public servants. So just think that why public servants are made anonymous. Yes, anybody? Why we had made them anonymous? Any guess?
So that they do not have any greed for name and fame.
Yes, that you can say. Actually, what we want, that our public servants should be politically neutral. Because as I told you, that political executives provide will. जैसे नरेंद्र मोदी बोलेंगे कि मुझे टॉयलेट्स बनानी है, तो वो बोलेंगे सिविल सर्वेंट्स को कि आप सजेस्ट करो कि क्या पॉलिसी ला सकते हैं और कैसे इंप्लीमेंट करेंगे. Then few person will suggest that we can launch Swachh Bharat mission, and they will propose their agenda, their scheme, their program to implement this, basically to fulfill this objective. And then another government will come, they will also ask for something else. So these are civil servants only implement the will provided by the political executives, and the will come from the political executives. And as a permanent civil servant, their role is only for implementation. So there is a concept of political neutrality. That means you cannot bias for any particular ideology. You cannot bias for any particular, any particular political party. And if you are anonymous, if nobody knows that what is your ideology, to for whom, because they do not work for any particular individual, they work for the countrymen. And suppose if any particular civil servant named civil servant's name is attached to any particular political person, political executives, then what would be the tendency of the next government? To remove that person from that post. That would be a tendency. So a kind of safeguard is provided to these civil servants so that they cannot be harassed by the political parties, and as well as so that they could be political politically neutral person. So what we said, anonymity में लिखो आप लोग, it must be preserved. It must be preserved by the official, by the official in carrying out, in carrying out the a public business, carrying out the public business. The official acts, the official acts the official acts not in his personal capacity, not in his personal capacity, but as an agent of authority, but as an agent of authority. And in virtue of, and in virtue of the post, the post he is holding, he is holding, and in virtue of the post he is holding. So what we are saying here that the public servants work as an agent of authority. That means, for example, if there is a district collector, so the person, for example, the XYZ is a person and he is a district collector, DC or DM. So whatever order he will pass, he won't pass order of XYZ person. He will pass order of this post, the authority that he has. And others will obey their orders. For example, the lower the people from the lower administration will obey their order, his order. Why? Because he has that authority, he has that post. You can defy an order, a personal order. That is why we can defy any personal order made by person in any in his personal capacity. मान लीजिए वो पर्सन बोलता है कि मेरे बच्चे को घर से ले आओ, definitely you can defy that order. Why? Because you are not here to obey the orders in his personal capacity. You only serve for the country, you only serve for the government, and you only take the orders from that authority, that post. That means you will won't take any order from the XYZ, you will take order from the district collector. And because as a civil servant, this person is exposed to not to have any public face. This person act as an authority, and that is why this person should be anonymous. And as Shalu said that there is no name or fame needed for the civil servants. Why? Because they work for that post and not for in his personal capacity. So these are the things, and then you can write down our next heading, that is scope of public administration. Scope of public administration. Did I share the syllabus with you? मैंने आप लोगों के साथ syllabus share किया क्या?
No, sir.
Okay, just a second. तो इस सिलेबस को आप लोग साथ के साथ देखते रहो कि क्या क्या हमने कवर किए। आई हैव सेंट दिस सिलेबस इन अवर जूम चैट ओनली। इसको आप लोग देख सकते हो, डाउनलोड कर सकते हो आप लोग। आई विल शेयर दिस सिलेबस इन टेलीग्राम ऑल्सो। ओके, so if you see that now we are on this topic, so scope of public administration, okay, and all of these topics are very important। और उसके साथ ही हम लोग प्रीवियस ईयर के क्वेश्चंस पेपर भी देखेंगे, बिकॉज इसमें थोड़ा सा डिफरेंस है जीएस से, बिकॉज you know that here we have options। just a second, इसमें एक चीज समझने वाली है जो कि थोड़ा सा जीएस से जहां पर डिफरेंस पड़ता है आप लोगों को। I want to make a little bit analysis of this paper कि आपको किस तरह से अप्रोच करना है, and that is very important। okay, yes। तो जैसे कि मैंने बताया आपको, यहाँ पर दो पेपर होंगे आपके, पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन 1 एंड पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन 2। आई होप दैट यू आर एबल टू सी द प्रीवियस ईयर क्वेश्चन पेपर। ओके, ये 2019 का मेंस का पेपर है पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन का। तो इसमें किस तरह से क्वेश्चन पेपर आता है, देखिए यहाँ पर दो सेक्शन होते हैं एक पेपर में। इसको मैं थोड़ा सा ड्रॉ भी कर सकता हूँ। तो यहाँ पर आप देखो, कैंडिडेट हैज टू अटेम्प्ट 5 क्वेश्चंस। आप लोगों को 5 क्वेश्चंस अटेम्प्ट करने ओवरऑल दोनों सेक्शन से। ओके, तो टोटल हमें कितने क्वेश्चन अटेम्प्ट करने हैं? 5 क्वेश्चंस। तो कुछ इस तरह से पैटर्न है ये। आपके दो पेपर हैं सेपरेट पेपर, पेपर 1 पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन एंड पेपर 2 each having 250 marks। दोनों सेपरेट पेपर होंगे और हर पेपर में दो सेक्शन होंगे, सेक्शन ए एंड सेक्शन बी। जैसे मान लीजिए आपके सिलेबस में 12 चैप्टर्स हैं, तो फर्स्ट 6 चैप्टर्स सपोज आपके आ जाएंगे सेक्शन ए में और नेक्स्ट 6 चैप्टर्स आ जाएंगे सेक्शन बी में। सो ओवरऑल क्वेश्चंस कितने आएंगे आपके एग्जाम में? देयर वुड बी 8 क्वेश्चंस। ओके, फॉर एग्जांपल इफ यू आर डिस्कसिंग अबाउट पेपर 1 of public administration, there would be 2 sections, section A and section B। There would be total 8 questions in your exam। तो सेक्शन ए में आपके कितने क्वेश्चंस आएंगे? There would be 4 questions, 1 2 3 4। Likewise section B also would have 4 questions, 5th 6th 7th 8th। और ओवरऑल आपको कितने करने हैं? 5 क्वेश्चन करने हैं। दैट मीन्स इसमें ऑप्शंस होंगे। यदि आपको लगता है कि ये क्वेश्चन मेरे को नहीं आ रहा, आप इसको छोड़ सकते हो, आई मीन 6th वन। पर इसमें कंडीशन क्या है कि फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन एंड 5th क्वेश्चन इज कंपलसरी। इसमें जनरली क्या होते हैं कि जनरली ये 10-10 मार्क्स के क्वेश्चन होते हैं और इसमें 5 या 6 क्वेश्चन आ जाते हैं। सपोज 5 क्वेश्चन आ गए, 10-10 मार्क्स ईच। सो ये फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन 50 मार्क्स का हो गया। लाइकवाइज सेम विद द 5th क्वेश्चन, for 10 marks 5 questions are coming, then it would be 50 marks and first and 5th will be compulsory। और ये short questions होते हैं 10 marks, लेकिन जो बाद में जो questions आएंगे that will be some you know it could be 15 marks question, it could be 20 marks question, it could be you know little bit weightage is more for these questions। अभी इस बचे हुए 6 क्वेश्चंस में बिकॉज आपको टोटल 5 करने थे, 2 आपको कंपलसरी हैं, फर्स्ट और 5th दोनों सेक्शन से एक एक करना, एक तरह से दोनों सेक्शन से आपने फर्स्ट एंड फिफ्थ कर लिया। उसके बाद आपको इन बचे हुए 6 क्वेश्चन में से कितने क्वेश्चन चूज करने हैं? 3, मतलब आपको हाफ करने हैं। अब इसमें भी एक कंडीशन है अगेन, कि कम से कम हर सेक्शन से एक, ऐसा नहीं है कि 3 के 3 आपने सेक्शन बी से कंसीडर कर लिया, 3 के 3 आपने सेक्शन ए से कंसीडर कर लिया, ऐसा नहीं आप कर सकते। इसमें क्या कि कम से कम एक सेक्शन, एक क्वेश्चन एक सेक्शन से लेना पड़ेगा। या तो इसको इस तरह से ले लें हम लोग, इसका मतलब हम लोग को इस तरह से करना पड़ेगा कि 2 क्वेश्चन एक से लें, एक क्वेश्चन यहां से ले लें, या एक क्वेश्चन यहां से ले लें, दूसरा 2 क्वेश्चन यहां से ले लें, इनमें से ले लें। सो दैट इज अ स्कीम बेसिकली। अभी देखो इसमें है क्या समझने वाली बात, सेक्शन ए मतलब पहले 6 चैप्टर, यदि 12 चैप्टर हैं तो, यदि 14 है तो पहले 7 चैप्टर, ऐसा बोल सकते हो आप लोग। सेक्शन बी का मतलब लास्ट के 6 चैप्टर्स। मान लीजिए आप लोगों का कुछ पोर्शन वीक है, मान लो कुछ आपको लगता है कुछ टॉपिक्स मेरे वीक है, तो आप लोगों का ये सेक्शन ए बहुत अच्छा है, मतलब शुरुआत के चैप्टर्स आपने बहुत अच्छे से पढ़े हैं, डेफिनेटली यू नीड टू ऑप्ट द क्वेश्चंस फ्रॉम द सेक्शन ए। दैट डिपेंड्स। हम लोग सारे टॉपिक्स पढ़ेंगे और सबको इक्वली इंपॉर्टेंस देके पढ़ेंगे, ओके। बट आई एम सेइंग स्टिल देयर आर ऑप्शंस इन द ऑप्शनल पेपर, कि आपको क्वेश्चंस चूज करने होते हैं। क्वेश्चन चूज बहुत वाइजली करने हैं आपको, ऐसा नहीं है कि कुछ भी आपने चूज कर लिया, आपको बहुत वाइजली चूज करना पड़ेगा क्वेश्चन। उस सब की प्रैक्टिस हम लोग करने वाले हैं, ओके। सो इसमें है क्या कि जो फर्स्ट 2 चैप्टर्स हैं, जैसे कि हम लोग सिलेबस डिस्कस कर रहे थे, दिस इज योर सिलेबस। फर्स्ट 2 चैप्टर्स हैं, यहां से काफी क्वेश्चंस बनते हैं। सो ये यहां से आपसे ये समझ लो कि एटलीस्ट, बिकॉज थिंकर्स भी सेकंड चैप्टर्स में आ गए, जितने भी थिंकर्स हैं वो सेकंड चैप्टर में आ गए हैं। सो एटलीस्ट ये फर्स्ट 2 चैप्टर्स का जो वेटेज है दैट इज अराउंड एटलीस्ट 100 मार्क्स आउट ऑफ 250, एटलीस्ट 100 मार्क्स। इट कुड बी 150 आल्सो आउट ऑफ 250। सो फर्स्ट 2 चैप्टर्स काफी इंपॉर्टेंट है, बिकॉज एक तरह से ये इंट्रोडक्शन, मतलब इंट्रोडक्शन के अंदर सारा एक मेजर आपको ब्रॉड आइडिया मिल जाएगा एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव थ्योरी का। एंड सेकंड चैप्टर इज फॉर थिंकर्स, तो इसमें काफी सारे थिंकर्स हैं जो हम लोग पढ़ेंगे, दैट इज व्हाई दिस फर्स्ट 2 चैप्टर्स आर वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, ओके। तो जितनी चीजें हम लोग को पढ़ रहे हैं इसको बहुत कॉन्सेप्चुअली तरीके से समझना है आप लोगों को, और मैं थोड़ा सा आपको आइडिया बताना चाह रहा था कि पेपर किस तरह से आ रहा है, इसलिए हम लोगों ने ये सब चीज डिस्कस की, ओके। तो आप लोग प्रीवियस पेपर के क्वेश्चन भी देखते रहना, साथ के जैसे हम टॉपिक कवर करते जाएंगे वैसे वैसे आप लोग पेपर को भी एनालाइज करते जाना, प्रीवियस के क्वेश्चंस देखते रहना आप लोग, ओके। So whatever, then we were on the topic of scope of public administration. Scope of public administration.
So paper 1 and paper 2 both have same kind of pattern.
हाँ, डेफिनेटली बोथ हैव सेम काइंड ऑफ पैटर्न। दोनों में सेक्शन, 2 सेक्शन होंगे, और दोनों में हम आपको 5 क्वेश्चंस करने होंगे, दोनों में 8 आएंगे, उनमें से 5 क्वेश्चंस करने हैं, सेम, ओके। सो स्कोप ऑफ पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन, इसमें लिखो आप लोग, इनिशियली इनिशियली public administration was initially public administration was defined in terms of defined in terms of the activities the activities performed by the activities performed by the executive branch, the executive branch of the government, of the government, comma, thinkers like Herbert Simon, thinkers like Herbert Simon have defined have defined thinkers like Herbert Simon have defined public administration defined public administration in narrow terms. In narrow terms. That is, they only included. That is, they only included. They only included activities of executives. Activities of executives. They excluded. They excluded activities of. They excluded activities of other organs. They excluded activities of other organs of the state. Other organs of the state, like legislature and judiciary. Other organs of the state like legislature and judiciary. This definition of public administration, this definition of public administration was rejected by, this definition of public administration was rejected by others like, rejected by others like L.D. White, rejected by others like L.D. White and Woodrow Wilson. Rejected by L.D. White and Woodrow Wilson. Who was Woodrow Wilson? Yes, anybody? White is famous in public administration.
US President.
Yes. Please repeat it.
US.
I think your voice is breaking. So basically, because you need to revise your notes, okay? ये हम लोग पढ़ चुके हैं. Woodrow Wilson, basically known as father of this discipline, father of public administration. Why? Because yes, US president. Okay, Pranav. No, US president is okay, but why he is so much famous in public administration? What is the linkage of Woodrow Wilson with public administration? That was my question. Okay, कौन सा ऐसे लिखा था उसने? Yes, फटाफट से बताओ आप लोग. किस कौन सा ऐसे लिखा था, कौन सी ईयर में लिखा था, so that it could become so much famous?
The study of administration.
The study of administration. Year? अब फटाफट से आप लोग नहीं बता पा रहे हैं, इसका मतलब आप लोगों ने नोट्स रिवाइज नहीं की. ओके, सो आई स्ट्रिक्टली रिकमेंड टू रिवाइज योर नोट्स. ओके, 1887. ओके, या ईयर इज राइट. सो आप लोग नोट्स अच्छे से रिवाइज करो, बिकॉज खट से आना चाहिए आपका आंसर. इतना टाइम नहीं लेना हम लोग को बताने के लिए. ओके, तो 5 बार, बिकॉज अभी तो शुरुआत हुई है, अभी बहुत सारे नोट्स आपके एक्यूमुलेट हो जाएंगे. And that is why I will recommend that you need to revise your notes definitely. So what we have said that this view was rejected by others like L.D. White and Woodrow Wilson. They believed that Woodrow Wilson, they believed that public administration must include activities of all organs of the state. Must include activities of all organs of the state. but over a period of time, but over, इसको हम समझेंगे, इसको लिख लो फटाफट से आप लोग, फिर उसको समझेंगे हम लोग. But over a period of time, even this decision is found to be inadequate, is found to be inadequate to explain, inadequate to explain. Even this decision is found to be inadequate to explain. The scope of discipline, the scope of discipline, even this decision is found to be inadequate to explain the scope of discipline of public administration, of public administration. So पहले यहां तक का समझते हैं, उसके बाद हम लोग इसको लिखते हैं. So what we said that firstly, स्कोप का मतलब आप समझते हैं कि पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन का दायरा कितना है. ओके, किन किन चीजों से हमको डील करना है पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन को. पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन को पढ़ने के लिए हम लोग को कहाँ किस लेवल तक का पढ़ना है, दैट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ स्कोप, स्कोप ऑफ पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन. अभी आप लोग देखो कि what we said here that initially when the public administration was started, it was defined in terms of activities performed by the executive branch of the government. So हमको पता है कि 3 ब्रांचेस हैं गवर्नमेंट की, 3 ऑर्गन्स हैं, एग्जीक्यूटिव, लेजिस्लेचर एंड जुडिशरी. तो सबसे पहले तो ये माना गया इनिशियली this structure was adopted that public administration need to deal with the only this branch of executives, and these 2 branches are independent of public administration. हम लोग को लेजिस्लेचर जुडिशरी के बारे में नहीं पढ़ना, you only need to deal with the executives. But with the passage of time and who said this, किस तरह के thinkers ने बोला इस तरह का, like Herbert Simon. Then other thinkers, कुछ और thinkers थे जिनका व्यू डिफरेंट था. They said that public administration deal with all these 3 organs. For example, L.D. White, और Woodrow Wilson, they thought like that कि पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन तीनों ब्रांच से डील करता है. There were different views. तो उसके बाद सबसे पहले हम लोग एग्जीक्यूटिव से स्टार्ट हुए कि हम लोग को सिर्फ एग्जीक्यूटिव पार्ट या इंप्लीमेंटेशन पार्ट पे फोकस करना है. बट इन लेटर टाइम we have increased the scope of public administration. We included the other 2 organs, legislature and judiciary, for the part of the study for public administration. And not only that, even this scope was found inadequate. और यहां पर आकर हम लोग नहीं रुके, हम लोगों ने बोला कि इसका स्कोप इससे भी ज्यादा बड़ा होना चाहिए. And now it became so enormous, scope of public administration became so enormous that you cannot think. Why I'm saying so? अभी इनका क्या कहना है, especially after 1990s, public administration scope has increased tremendously. और अभी हम लोग आजकल क्या बोलते हैं, anything which is done for the welfare of the public is treated as public administration. और वो वेलफेयर चाहे वो प्राइवेट सेक्टर कर रहा है, चाहे कोई एनजीओ कर रही है, चाहे आप एक एज एन इंडिविजुअल कर रहे हैं, यदि आप लोगों ने कुछ वेलफेयर का काम किया पब्लिक के लिए, देन यू विल बी पार्ट ऑफ पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन. मान लीजिए स्वच्छ भारत मिशन लॉन्च किया नरेंद्र मोदी ने, उन्होंने बोला कि लोगों को भी इसमें हेल्प करनी चाहिए, लोगों को वॉलंटरीली आके सफाई करनी चाहिए, लाइक दैट. और आप लोगों ने स्टार्ट कर दिया, देन मीन्स यू बिकेम पार्ट ऑफ पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन. Because citizen participation, all these things are evolved with the passage of time. The corporate social responsibility, CSR, for the private sector emerged with the passage of time. The role of NGOs or civil society was increased with the passage of time. Role of media was increased with the passage of time. In that sense, everything, every individual, every entity who is performing the welfare objective of for the people, that will be considered the part of the public administration. But this definition, this scope was increased after 1990s. So currently, and this is a model of governance. That means now there are two words. One is government, another is governance. This is an institution. इसको हम लोग समझेंगे इस डिफरेंस को जब हम लोग गुड गवर्नेंस पढ़ेंगे. गुड गवर्नेंस इन योर सिलेबस. अभी आप लोग देखो, गुड गवर्नेंस पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन में पढ़ते हैं हम लोग, और बहुत अच्छे से पढ़ते हैं, और ये जीएस के लिए भी इंपॉर्टेंट है. गुड गवर्नेंस के ऊपर क्वेश्चंस आए हैं जीएस में, और यदि आप लोगों ने पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन केस में गुड गवर्नेंस पढ़ा, देन यू विल राइट ए फेबुलस आंसर इन जीएस पेपर. ओके, सो ये सब कॉन्सेप्ट्स हम लोग पढ़ेंगे, डोंट वरी. सो फिलहाल शॉर्टकट में बता रहा हूँ आप लोगों को ब्रीफली कि देयर आर टू टर्म्स, गवर्नमेंट एंड गवर्नेंस. जो गवर्नमेंट है दैट इज इंस्टीट्यूशन, वो एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, ये एक इंस्टीट्यूशन है. और गवर्नेंस क्या है? प्रोसेस. लोगों को मैनेज करना, लोगों की एस्पायरेशंस को कंप्लीट करना, दैट इज गवर्नेंस. इसमें लॉ एंड ऑर्डर भी आ गया, इसमें वेलफेयर स्कीम्स भी आ गई, इसमें सब कुछ आ गया. जो भी लोगों के लिए हम वेलफेयर के लिए जो भी काम कर रहे हैं, दैट इज बेसिकली गवर्नेंस. सो इफ यू टॉकिंग अबाउट गवर्नमेंट, इसका मतलब सिर्फ जैसे गवर्नमेंट का वर्ड हम सुनते हैं अपने दिमाग में, तो हमारे सामने सबसे पहले क्या आता है? मिनिस्टर आ जाते हैं, सारे ब्यूरोक्रेट्स आ जाएंगे, आपके लोकल म्यूनिसिपैलिटी ऑफिस, पटवारी, ग्राम पंचायत, ऑल दिस इंस्टीट्यूशंस विल कम इन योर माइंड व्हेनेवर यू लिसन द वर्ड गवर्नमेंट. बट व्हेनेवर यू लिसन द वर्ड गवर्नेंस, गवर्नेंस कोई भी परफॉर्म कर सकता है. मान लीजिए आज टाटा ट्रस्ट है, कुछ लोगों के लिए वेलफेयर के लिए काम कर रही है, दैट मींस ही इज बीइंग ए पार्ट ऑफ गवर्नेंस. सेम कंसेप्ट जो मैंने सबसे पहले आपको बोला कि पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन का स्कोप पहले से बढ़ गया. नाउ एवरी एंटिटी व्हिच इज प्रोवाइडिंग वेलफेयर फॉर द पीपल become the part of public administration. Same concept we use while making differentiation between the government and governance. तो गवर्नेंस में उस तमाम इंस्टीट्यूशंस और तमाम लोग आ जाएंगे जो कि वेलफेयर का काम कर रहे हैं, लोगों के वेलफेयर के लिए काम कर रहे हैं, और गवर्नमेंट में सिर्फ गवर्नमेंट इंस्टीट्यूशंस आएंगे. But as a word, government is an institution, governance is process. So I hope ये समझ में आया होगा आप लोगों को. ये सब तमाम ये conceptual questions आए हैं एग्जाम में पहले, and these are, if you know the basics, if you know the concepts, this paper is nothing for you. You can get very good marks. Okay, तो concepts पे हम लोग को इस पे focus करना है, which most of students do not perform. Okay. So whatever, इसमें आगे लिखो. At present, public administration includes. At present, public administration includes. Bracket में लिखो. Especially after 1990s. At present, public administration includes. Bracket में लिखो. Especially after 1990s. First point इसमें लिखो. Activities of executive, legislature and judiciary. ये तो एक बात हो गई. इसके अलावा और क्या इंक्लूड कर दिया गया? अब एक्टिविटीज ऑफ प्राइवेट सेक्टर. कंडीशन क्या है? that all these institutions should work for the welfare of the people. Activities of private sector and within the ambit of the law of the land. कुछ कोई इलीगल काम करके कोई वेलफेयर करना चाह रहा है, मान लीजिए कोई ऐसा क्रिमिनल है, जैसे कि बहुत सारे ऐसे क्रिमिनल्स को लोग अपना मसीहा मानते हैं. You have seen these some movies also, like Once Upon a Time in Mumbai, etc. So if a criminal is performing a welfare function, that person cannot be part of public administration. Why? Because he is doing illegal work. So only those people or those entities who are performing the welfare function, as well as second condition is that they should work within the law, within the rule of law. They're not working as per the law of the land. They cannot be part of public administration. So activities of private sector Yes, if they are performing the welfare function and they are working in the law of the land, then definitely they can be considered as under the public administration. Then activities of market. Activities of market forces, we are talking about every kind of market forces. Then fourth point, activities of civil society organizations. Activities of civil society, activities of civil society organizations, activities of civil society organizations. नेक्स्ट लिखो आप सिविल सोसाइटी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस कॉमा लिख लो कॉमा एनजीओस CSOs NGOs and other community based and other community based organizations and other community based organizations. Next point, activities of media. Activities of media. Activities of media. Activities of media. Next is multilateral institutions. Multilateral institutions. Multilateral institutions in the age of globalization. In the age of globalization. In the age of globalization. Multilateral institutions in the age of globalization. And last but not the least, that is people themselves. People themselves. So you can see that we have included everything in the scope of public administration. If we consider the recent scope of public administration, if we talk about the modern days, in modern days, the scope of public administration is tremendous. Each and every institution became a part of public administration. Only two conditions are there, that they need to perform the welfare function, and secondly, ये सब चीजें लिख लिया करो आप लोग, रिमार्क करके लिख लिया करो. आपको लगता है कि इसके नोट्स में ऐसे नहीं करना, मिक्स नहीं करना, तो आप लोग रिमार्क करके लिख लिया करो. Each and every institution is or entity is part of public administration. Only two conditions are there. One is welfare, objective of welfare. Second is they should work under as per rule of law. Okay, because these notes, these concepts you cannot find anywhere. Okay, यदि आप लोग बुक्स पढ़ने लगोगे तो आप लोगों को इतनी conceptual clarity नहीं होगी. Okay, so that is why you need to make good notes also. आपको बहुत अच्छे notes बनाने हैं अपने. Definitely we will read books also, but the conceptual understanding we need to make with our class notes. Okay, next line से लिखो आप लोग, hence public administration may be defined as the activities of any institution, the activities of any institution whose objective is to maximize the welfare of people, and which works within the boundaries of boundaries of rule of law, boundaries of rule of law. तो हम लोग स्टार्ट हुए थे एग्जीक्यूटिव से, स्कोप हमारा स्टार्ट हुआ था एग्जीक्यूटिव से, then we included the executive, legislature and judiciary under the part of public administration, and now we are saying anything can be part of public administration. Only two conditions should be need to be satisfied. One is the objective should be welfare maximization, and second is that it should work as per the ambit of rule of law. So now, right from the next line, the scope of discipline is ever expanding. The scope of discipline is ever expanding. That means there are no limits. That means there are no limits. There are no limits to the discipline of public administration. Discipline of public administration. We cannot define the boundaries of public administration. We cannot define the boundaries of public administration. We cannot define the boundaries of public administration. The scope of discipline is expanding. The scope of discipline is expanding because of increasing aspirations. Because of increasing aspirations. Because of increasing aspirations of people. Because of increasing aspirations of people. During monarchy, comma, the scope of discipline was restricted to performing only regulatory functions. Only regulatory functions. Only regulatory functions. As the king treated pupil as subjects. King treated people as subjects to be governed. Subjects to be governed. Subjects to be governed. With the emergence of democracy, with the emergence of democracy, there has been rapid expansion. There has been rapid expansion. There has been rapid expansion in the scope of discipline. Rapid expansion in the scope of discipline. Due to unending aspirations. Due to unending aspirations. Due to unending aspirations of people. Aspirations of people. Due to unending aspirations of people. Scientific and technologic developments. Scientific and technologic developments have also influenced have also influenced have also influenced the scope of discipline. The scope of discipline. The scope of discipline. For example, 25 years back, 25 years back in India, e-governance was not part of the public administration. Public administration. Likewise, issues of sustainable development, right-based approach to development, right-based approach to development, civil society organizations, civil society organizations, global terrorism, women empowerment, were absent. But all of them have become an integral part of public administration. Integral part of public administration because of changing political, economic, social and cultural developments social and cultural developments. तो इसको समझते हम लोग क्या बोला हम लोगों ने यहाँ पे. We are saying here that initially when initially we have seen that how we evolved. First, political institutions are evolved. First of all, there was a egalitarian society. There was a republican. There were republics, and the society was egalitarian society. And with the passage of time, the monarchy came into picture. There was a kingship rule, and when there was a monarchy, then the functions of kings were very limited. It performed only regulatory functions. They were not concerned about the welfare of the people. They only performed the regulatory functions. For example, either they were interested about the revenue collection or they were interested about the law and order, to maintenance of law and order. But the objective of welfare was missing when there was a monarchy. There were only few cases isolated cases when we can see the welfare objective in the monarchy. For example, the case of Ashoka, in case of you know the Akbar. So that kind of, but that was a rare cases, and that also limited scale. But when then again there was a evolution of democracy that replaced monarchy, then people got that power in their hand, and then they demanded more. Their aspirations were increased, and because the people aspirations were increased, because they are not demanding more, and that is why the role of this the role of the public administration also increased. Earlier they performed only the regulatory functions. In fact, if you see in British India also, in British India they were only interested about the regulatory functions. That was a police state. But now in independent India, because now it's a free country, it's a democratic country, and that is why the role of public administration has tremendously increased. That is one factor. That is a historical factor. And apart from that, now there is a advancement, scientific and technological advancement also, and that is also resulted into the increase of the functions in the increase in the functions of public administration. For example, if you will see, first of all, there was no computer. Every thing was manual. The civil servants sat in their offices, and people came and they provided the services, and at very low speed also. And then computer came into picture, but this computer work came only to help the technological help to the civil servants or public administrators. Still, people were coming in public offices, but what changes were brought, that the manual work which took the large time, now the work become little bit easier. Now people got speedy delivery of services because computer came. And then we moved one step forward. And what was that? That even you can access services at your home. Even if you're not visiting any public offices, you can access your services at home. For example, you can open your bank account at your home. You can apply online. You can pay your taxes at home. You can apply for other things like PAN card, etc., GST number. You can register your firm at your home. There are so many things that has become a part of e-governance, and that is called e-governance. Again, there's a difference between the e-government and e-governance. E-government and e-governance. ये सब चीजें हम लोग पढ़ेंगे. E-governance is also a isolated topic. उसमें हम लोग पढ़ेंगे. In the topic of e-governance also, we will see the difference between the e-government and e-governance. लेकिन मैं आपको shortly यहाँ पर बता रहा हूँ. E-government means गवर्नमेंट के पास यदि कंप्यूटर्स हैं, गवर्नमेंट के पास यदि टेक्नोलॉजी है, दैट मींस ई-गवर्नमेंट. दैट मींस गवर्नमेंट बिकम्स डिजिटलाइज्ड. And e-governance means that means services are now provided through technology. This is related to the service, or obviously it's a process. It is related to the services provided to the people with the use of the e-government, with the use of computers, internet, etc. I hope that is clear to you. So what I said, that the scope of public administration has been increased because of various reasons, and these could be taken as some reasons that why scope of public administration is so much increased. Now the functions of public administration are so much increased. Earlier the life was very simple, and now society becoming the complex. People do not have time to spend for themselves. They're so much involved in every kind of work. People are so much overloaded, and because of functions of our society are so much increased, that is why we are demanding from the government more. And because we are demanding more from the government, and that is why the overall burden would come to public administrators, because these are the people who need to implement all these policies that is framed by the government. So इसमें नेक्स्ट हेडिंग लिखो आप लोग, डिफरेंट व्यूज different views regarding scope of public administration. Scope of public administration. So इससे पहले हम लोगों ने जो स्कोप पे सारी बात की, दैट वाज एन एनालिसिस, कि हम लोगों ने एनालिसिस किया था कि किस तरह से पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन का स्कोप बढ़ा. ओके, नाउ देयर आर सेपरेट views or separate theories given by some scholars. Okay, तो उसको हम लोग देखते हैं उन्होंने स्कोप के बारे में क्या बोला. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, the two famous views are integral view versus managerial view. So first हम लोग देखते हैं integral view versus managerial view. Both integral view and managerial view will talk about scope of public administration. But what is the difference between these two views? We will see in next class. Okay, because अब इसको शुरुआत करेंगे तो इसको खत्म नहीं हो पाएगा और इसको एक साथ ही पढ़ेंगे हम लोग. So if you have any kind of doubt in this class, you can ask me. Yes, anybody has any doubt regarding anything? And definitely यदि आप लोग नोट्स रिवाइज करो और आप लोगों को रिवाइज करने के बाद लगता है कि कुछ चीज मेरे को समझ में नहीं आई या इसको और अच्छे से समझना है, you can ask me. Okay, it's up to you. आप लोगों को यूज करना है कि कैसे अपने टीचर का यूज करना है. Okay, it's up to you. Yes. एंड डेफिनेटली प्रीवियस क्वेश्चंस देखो आप लोग कि किस तरह से पेपर आता है, किस तरह से क्वेश्चंस आते हैं और किस तरह से हम लोग को डील करना है. ओके, ऑल दिस थिंग्स विल बी डन बाय यू ओनली. और कुछ बुक्स है जो हम लोग पढ़ सकते हैं, कुछ बुक्स मैंने आपको बताई थी, आई थिंक मैंने आपको बताई थी, और जो भी बची हुई बुक्स हैं वो लोग बता देंगे. जैसे टाइम जाता रहेगा हम लोग आपको डिस्कस करते रहेंगे, बिकॉज अभी शुरुआत है, सारी बुक्स अभी लाने की जरूरत नहीं है. सो कुछ बुक्स का ऑर्डर कर सकते हो. फिलहाल आपको जो ऑर्डर करनी है बुक्स, प्रसाद एंड प्रसाद काफी फेमस बुक है पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन के लिए, उसका आप लोग ऑर्डर कर सकते हो. उसमें थिंकर्स सब दिए हुए हैं. सो आई थिंक देयर वाज डिस्कनेक्शंस. व्हाट आई वाज सेइंग दैट आपको भी प्रसाद एंड प्रसाद आप बुक परचेज कर सकते हैं आप लोग, एंड इट इज अबाउट एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव थिंकर्स. ओके, उसका एग्जैक्ट नेम और एग्जैक्ट पब्लिकेशंस मैं आप लोगों को मैसेज कर दूंगा टेलीग्राम के ऊपर. बट यस, इट्स प्रसाद एंड प्रसाद फॉर एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव थिंकर्स. ओके, उसमें काफी आपको थिंकर्स कवर हो जाएंगे. I mean, almost every thinker will be covered by that book. So there is a standard book that you can purchase at this particular moment. इसके अलावा एक मोहित भट्टाचार्य बुक है, I think I've told you, A New Origins of Public Administration. ये उस बुक का नाम है, New Origins of Public Administration. Okay, given by मोहित भट्टाचार्य. It's very famous book again that you can also purchase. Okay, तो ये दो standard books आप purchase कर सकते हो फिलहाल. And whatever the study material, obviously I will also can provide some study material, and apart from that you have class notes also. Okay, so this is it with this class, and we'll meet tomorrow.